It says recording.
All right, okay. Wave.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
That was shit. Let's do that again. Hello, everyone. It's
Hi.
Jamie and Luke from Front again. Thanks for checking out our second podcast.
Yeah, we interviewed Aiyush Pachnanda. You would maybe know him better as Yushy on Instagram. He's a really amazing up-and-coming documentary photographer. I've known him for years. We talked to him about everything from how he got started in photography through to taking his camera traveling, winning awards and going to uni, releasing a book, and up to now the sort of documentary work that he does, and a little bit about what all that entails, what documentary photography is. And we just talk about a load of other rubbish for about 45 minutes or so.
But yeah, what an interesting guy. Really, really genuine. Definitely passionate about what he does, not only as a hobbyist, as a photographer, but in his work life as well. Yeah, he was really, really interesting. Some of the things that he's accomplished is fantastic, and some of the things that he continues to do on a daily basis is really inspiring.
So what else do we want to talk about? We'll talk about Front of a little bit for a minute.
We could give everyone an update of where we are.
Where are we then?
We're rocking and rolling. No, we just want to give a big shout out, say thanks to everyone who has registered to our mailing list so far. We are getting a lot of questions at the moment about when we're launching. So if you haven't checked out our first podcast, go check that out. I'm sure the link will be below, or go on our YouTube. There aren't many videos up there. Yeah.
But if you have checked out our first podcast, thank you for doing that, and then thank you for watching this one as well. We had like more views than we imagined. It wasn't like
we got into triple figures,
but we thought we'd have about 4.
Yeah.
And then we had more than that. So
more
than 4, less than 1,000.
Yeah. But yeah, if you fancy staying tuned, obviously subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, and send us a message. We will reply to you. But yeah, in terms of launch, we're still on track in terms of what we're building and what we're working on. We still need to go through testing everything, but we are on track to kind of launch in May. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
We're not saying when in May because it might be towards the end, but
at the moment, we're looking at some time in May to get the site live. So
we will be doing another giveaway soon, which is exciting. I won't give too much away at the moment in terms of what the prize is, but yeah, stay tuned for that. That'll probably be coming later this week or even start next week.
Anything else? What have you been doing?
What have I been doing?
Yeah.
I met with you the other day, didn't I? That was nice.
Yeah, socially distanced.
Social distance, little walk with the dog.
Yeah, that was good. Took some photos.
You tried out the Mamiya RB67 for the first time.
Yeah, is that how you say it? Mamiya.
Mamiya. I don't know.
Sounds like.
How do you say it? How do you say it? You tell us. Leave a comment. That sounds very YouTuberish, doesn't it?
Yeah, on how to pronounce a word.
But yeah, how did you find that?
What, the camera or meeting you? The camera. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I've never used one of those cameras before.
And you're developing it. You're developing it, and I'm scanning it in.
Yeah, it's in my fridge at the moment, isn't it? All 12 shots of it, or 10 shots, or however many it was. I developed some film today. That was quite exciting. Always exciting when it actually works. Every time I do it, I have to watch the Sean Tucker explainer video on how to develop film, even though I know exactly how to do it.
I think I've watched that 3 times, and I haven't got an interest in developing at the moment.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I keep going through stages of like, I'm going to do it. But then, I always just send my films to take it easy.
The thing is, when I suppose you've got to spend 100 quid on the kit and stuff, but when I do, every time I do it, I'm quite lazy, so I'm like, oh, God, do this thing. But then you start doing it, and it's actually quite fun. And then when they're developed, you're like, well, that's cool. I just saved myself like 20 quid sending that off. So like once you developed a few rolls, it's paid for itself. It's good fun. My daughter helped me do it. Nice. That was good. Yeah, well, she helped twizzle the thing around.
Well, looking forward to seeing the results. We have actually had a few messages about people seeing our work. I'm pretty sure Well, they are. Our own Instagrams are on our profile, aren't they?
Yeah.
So if you want to see how amazing us two are, then feel free to hit that. But yeah, we're not going to post any of our work on the front account. That's for sharing your guys' work and giving you information about what we're working on. Should we crack on with the podcast?
So we interviewed Aiyush last week. Yeah, so a week ago, as this podcast comes out. It was a few days after he'd spent a weekend, or well, I mean, every day he's at different protests or whatever it might be, covering them at the moment. But he'd spent a weekend covering various protests that were going on, and the week before, all down in London. So we talked to him about all of that and everything else. The connection wasn't brilliant, so the sound quality is it kind of dips a little bit in places. It's not the best, but you know, what can you do at the moment? Everything's got to be recorded on Zoom, right? So nothing you can do about that. So we start off by asking him, how did you get into photography? Simple question.
Yeah, it goes from there. And obviously go check out his Instagram. The details will be below.
Instagram, his website, everything that he mentions, the few documentaries we talk about and things like that, there's links to everything. Every photographer that he wants to give a shout out to is also mentioned in the description as well.
And it might be worth mentioning as well that he is one of the front ambassadors. So he will be on front from day one of launch. So you'll be able to check out his work and support him in buying his prints if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to mention, isn't it?
Yeah,
I don't think we talk about it in the interview either, but yeah.
No. Enjoy.
Well, I think it started around about the time I met, or before I met you, Luke. I was in college and I was studying like creative media production, which was photography, journalism, filmmaking, PR marketing, and it was all kind of like and sound and engineering, which is very weird. But I learned the basics of everything, and I liked photography, and I just kind of kept it as a hobby, and it was always lingering around, especially when I was in college. I was just always taking pictures, always kind of pushing that creative side of me. And then when I left, I kind of like let it loose and started taking pictures of everything.
Did you find it more like when you studied it? Was it like, oh, I want to do this as a profession, or did you just enjoy it like as a hobbyist? It's something that you were passionate about, and you just kind of learned more and more and more from there.
But the more I learned about it, the more I kind of felt like, oh, I could do this or I could do that. And I remember quite early on, this was quite early on in my like photography career. I was getting jobs just taking pictures of like musicians and gigs, and I really didn't know that was a profession then. And I kind of kept that up, and it kind of really set my standards to what I do now.
Was that before we met? You were doing that
Around about the same time.
And that was probably 2014,
15, 14, 15. Yeah.
And so we worked together. That's how we originally met. But then we found out that we were both into photography. Well, after I left, you left
Yeah.
and went to uni in Cardiff. That was right?
Yep.
So what were you doing at uni?
I studied photojournalism, so it was like photography and journalism, quite full on. But that really said, "Oh, you're now in this course. This is what you're gonna do." And it's what I wanted to learn. I was really passionate about photojournalism. Like past few months of beginning of like 2016, I was really, really into like the idea of becoming like a storyteller through photography. When I started, it was really fulfilling for me because I learned the basics in like professional journalism and photography, and as well as like given briefs to just kind of like let loose in a city where I had no idea what to do.
Yeah, that was because you'd never lived there before. So is there a way that you could like sum up for anyone who doesn't know, like what documentary photography is? Is there an easy way to explain it?
I'll try it. I think it's just like archiving like bodies of work. So photographing one thing or a group of people for like years or months or days, and then kind of putting it in like a form where you could see it,
Okay.
and just having it in order, or just archiving photos.
Yeah. So who's
documenting.
the classic, if you were going to go and look up some documentary photographers, who are the most sort of famous ones, or the ones that you like the most, your favorites?
Oh God, there's a lot of
Or if you were a total
documentary stuff that I
beginner,
like.
let's say, like, if you were you've got to go and you've never heard of documentary photography before, so
Mhm.
who would you point us to? Whose work should you go and check out?
I'll keep it Welsh then. David Hearn, who is still
Okay.
quite big inspiration for me. Yeah.
Yeah, David Hearn.
Yeah.
Cool. All
hmm
right. I don't think I've heard of him, but I will go and check it out. That's where you did all the rave stuff. So your book, you got really embedded in like the mainly drum and bass, was it? But like rave
Yeah, all
culture.
drum and bass, all drum and bass.
Yeah, because so you put your book out, what was it, midway through last year?
Yeah, around May last year.
Yeah, cool. So tell us, was that part of a uni project that kind of carried on, or?
Mm. It happened completely by accident. Like it was around just after freshers in my first year, so it was September, really early on, and my mum was like kind of grilling me, saying, "Make sure you don't go like completely out of pocket. You don't blow all your money on clubbing, and have something to do, have a job." I saw the same day like an advert on Facebook where this promoter was just asking for a photographer, and I was, I'm a photographer. How can it be? And I kind of hired out equipment from the uni and just went to this rave, not knowing what it was. I just went to this club, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna take pictures the way I take pictures. And the promoter really liked it. He invited me back the weekend, and it kind of snowballed just from that day.
I suppose that's really nice to, to go there with no expectation or no kind of um, direction. It's just you're simply there to document what you see in the way that you want to do it, and then seeing the results from that and people liking it as well. That must have been a huge like confidence boost, and also opens up so many doors.
Mm.
Oh, oh, for sure. It was so unusual because I didn't know the city, and most of these people were like either older than me or just live in Cardiff. They were like, "Oh, I haven't seen you before. Where are you from?" "I'm from London." I'm like, "Oh, you should come to this show. Or come to this after party." And I'm like, they're showing me more about the city than I could ever do and learn, and like letting me into shows where like massive audiences, massive like headline acts, and I'm just there with my cameras, like still not sure like who this guy is or what this venue is. I'm like, this is super overwhelming, but I was loving it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as I say, I bet you was enjoying it as well. Like
Mm.
not as much pressure on you to do it because you wanted to be there, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
cool. Because I used to like go to like raves and stuff as not anymore, but as a youngster, and when I could stay out all night, and it was such a like there was a kind of always a community spirit, and especially somewhere quite a bit more local, like going out to raves in London, it's a bit of a different thing, like bit
Mm.
a bit less personal maybe, but like going to
Yeah.
other places in the country, such a good like spirit and really welcoming people. So was that the
Oh,
same
for
there?
sure. Yeah, for sure. Like, I didn't like clubbing in London. I thought that everyone was quite in your face and just violent. And then I go to Cardiff, and like you see like news stories about raves, and you kind of assume the worst. And I would go to these clubs not knowing anyone and make friends there, and people would come out like hugging me and like, "Here, or here's some tips. You can have this, or I'll drive you home, or come back to my house if you want to stay over." I'm like, this is really nice. People are really nice here.
That's
I guess
cool.
people are all there for the same reason, aren't they? They're all there for the love of the music and they want to be there. So like they're, you know, as crazy it might sound from an outsider, it's its own little family, its own little community, isn't it? While you're there, and everyone's there to look after each other and have fun.
100%.
You grew up in Kingston or near Kingston, wasn't it?
Hounslow, which is near Kingston, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And so I remember you telling me about a club, is it called like Oceana or something like that?
Yeah, it was Prism, yeah.
Prism, right? One of those places that changes its name all the time. But to me, that's like a totally different, that's just go out, get leathered, have a fight, you know, go out on the ball kind of club. Whereas going to like drum and bass or techno or like those type of club nights, it's way more about you're there because like this club's got an awesome sound system or because of who's playing or performing or whatever. So you know, the pictures that I've seen that you took at those club nights, they're not your typical like party photographer, you know, like big bright flash, and it's way more, yeah, it was got that sort of documentary vibe to it. So when was it that you thought, right, you were going to put a book out about it? How long had you been doing it?
Well, it wasn't until like the start of 2017 when I realized that I'm no longer going because I want to. It's like people want me in their shows, and they were willing to pay, which was amazing. And I kind of thought I can keep this up and get paid to do something that I'm really interested in. And it led me to kind of force myself to photograph these like shows. And the more I did it, the more I kind of realized pictures matched with each other that I've taken at 2 different clubs, 2 different times. And I kind of can piece together like a story and like a sequence. And I kept shooting and I kept shooting. And then uni finished and I was like, I'm not in Cardiff anymore. And I think that kind of fits well. I shot right until I finished university.
Was it something you were working on towards having a book, or was it just that you had a huge body of work and you were like, well, I'm going to try and put something together off the back of this?
That was it. And it was kind of because of lockdown I did it. I wasn't planning to release anything for like a few years. And like when lockdown last year kicked off, I was like, I could actually do something now, and I have some free time. I know how to make a book, and I was like, I might as well just put together something.
It's awesome. It's really cool because that was when we first started like speaking properly, because we hadn't spoke to each other for a little while. And I think I saw on somewhere weird like LinkedIn or something that you'd won an award maybe a year or two, maybe like 2 years ago, or even longer now. But yeah,
2018.
that's the picture behind you, isn't it? I think that you won an award for. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
So what is that? Is there a name of the picture, or what was the award?
That helps. Not too shiny.
Yeah. So 2018 I Am Awards winner, and you were photographer of the year.
Yeah, very, very. That was a weird point. I have to leave it down there so it's important. Yeah, that was completely. I still don't know how it happened, but it was a pretty cool point in my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. So who was the picture of? Was it just a random person, or was it someone you know?
It was a guy called Darren. I was doing this project for university about like tattoo culture, and like people with like extreme like tattoos, like face tattoos. And I took this picture of Darren on a phone, and I just entered it in the competition and didn't think much of it. Then went to India, came back, and then my appendix decided to explode. And then I was in hospital for a few days. I came out, and the first email that I checked was from IM saying I was a finalist for the competition. I was like,
So good.
So that was taken on your phone as well?
Yeah, this phone.
Nice. Amazing.
That just shows, doesn't it? It's, you know, people think, I want to get into photography, I haven't got the money to do it. You don't need money. You just need to see, you know, use your phone. You know, it's what it's there for.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, I didn't realize that was taken on your phone. That's really cool. Yeah.
Is that your approach to like a lot of photography? Like, if you were, you know, if you're shooting non-work related stuff, what is your approach to photography when it comes to photographing someone else?
If I'm doing like a portrait, I want to make the person feel as comfortable as possible. And I feel if you go there with like 4 cameras around your neck, they're gonna be very standoffish and kind of look at you and like, I don't know what I've got myself into. And when I'm with a person, when I'm trying to get into like almost a subculture, I go in like pretty casual and just act like I'm just watching them, or almost like a bird watcher. I say the people, like, I'm just gonna just shadow you and just you can do whatever and follow you around taking pictures. And if I want to stop you, I will.
I suppose you've got to strike a balance as well, haven't you? Like if you just went in with your iPhone to take a photo, it's like it's not enough. But yeah, if you go in with like 4 you know, DSLRs around your neck or whatever it might be, then yeah, it's kind of overkill.
Yeah.
I've done this thing called underrated, overrated, might just kind of fall flat on its ass a bit or whatever. But
Or it could be the next big thing.
So you can just say whether you think these things are underrated or overrated. And if you want to explain
feel free to
why,
explain, or feel free just to leave it.
Feel free to go, that's a shit question, mate. Like, yeah,
okay,
move on.
Okay.
So first thing, underrated or overrated, Cine Still.
Overrated. It's
yeah.
Oh, I hate Cine Still, but mostly because it's such a fashionable thing to shoot, as well as portrait. Like there's better films you can use, and it's just like I think of it as the supreme of films.
Okay, right.
What? So just a quick offcut of overrated, underrated. What would be your first choice of film? Like what film stock would you do?
Oh, super boring. HP5.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, can't go wrong, right?
No, keep it British.
Yeah. So next thing on the underrated, overrated is Leica.
Overrated.
Okay.
Yeah, I think as much as I like the idea of having a handcrafted camera, like spending almost like 10 grand on a body is like, no, not at all. Especially the film lighters. Some I would say Nikon f3, f2, even f4 are far superior. Leicas I see almost as watches. People that have Leicas also have nice watches and cars.
Yeah, but I think Leica is like the Apple of the camera world, because they're like, I want one, I really want. I've got an SLR Leica, it's a really cheap thing, but you know, an M, I never was that interested in it, and then I tried out an M10 just in a shop and was like, this is beautiful, I really want it. But it's the thing with like, they did the Q2 and then they did the Daniel Craig version of it, and it's an extra £1,000 to have it in black with gold, like Bond style markings on it. And I think, come on, it does look nice, but it's not worth an extra grand. And it's like the Apple thing, like you can get it in a different color, but it's going to cost you an extra £100 or whatever it might be. I think that's what they used to do. But I mean, yeah, I'll buy one day, but yeah, there's I'm still getting to grips with other stuff that I've got.
Yeah.
That's the day that you two will no longer be friends, by the sound of it.
I'll hit you with my Leica.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to wear my helmet for that.
Yeah. The last thing about, so underrated or overrated, double exposures.
Underrated, I'll say. I think there's always that, like, I'll say double exposure in camera, in a digital camera, overrated. But on film, done well, is very hard to do. And I think if you can master it, then tops, like, fair play to you, because you're not only doing it on like 2 different exposures, you need to calculate 2 different. It's a lot of maths.
I completely agree with that. I completely agree with that, because if you're deliberately trying to do it and it works well, like you said, it could look amazing. And then at the same time, if you do it accidentally and you still get something pretty cool, it's like a win-win.
Yeah.
But I've just finished a roll that I'm gonna I've done 2 rolls that I'm gonna develop, that I've done some double exposures on, and I think I might have 1 or 2 good ones, or ideas that I've copied off other things I saw on Instagram and tried to recreate, but let's see whether it works or not. Otherwise, I'm just going to give it up.
I was photographing Brexit marches, and that was kind of like the start of like my like almost, I say political work, but more like my protest journalism side work. And this is before uni. And when Brexit really kicked off, I was looking at all these protests happening in London, and I just couldn't make it down. And more things happened in Wales and Cardiff. There was like Welsh independence protests, which I went to, and then like football, rugby games, which I photographed, crowds of rugby games, and then that kind of led on to another project where I photographed people around the streets of Cardiff after nights out from like 2 a.m. to 3 a.m., which is great, but I couldn't get to finish it. But then when I came back to London, I had all of this energy to like see protests and photograph protests, and I was able to because the nature of like politics now, everything's pretty terrifying, and there's protests now every week.
So is that something you were passionate about in terms of the protest, or was that like opportunity to go and document something like this?
Like last year when the BLM protest really kicked off, and it kind of was a start, almost like teaching myself how to work in a new atmosphere, new crowd, when policing is hard, and how to like navigate yourself through that.
I don't think your protest work, I think it's quite unbiased. I think you're there and you're shooting what's happening. And I think I've seen you go to what could be considered like both left wing and right wing, marches. And I don't look at that work and think that you've got an opinion one way. I don't think you're trying to push an opinion. I know that you've got an opinion.
100%.
But
that's what I really like about your work. It's that you're so close to the action, yet you're also doing it from a stance that's further back. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you see so many other other people take photos like that who just stand back and they'll have a big lens on, or they'll just take it from a distance. But you are up close in people's faces.
So with that, do you have a particular approach that is going to come out as a more unbiased view, or is it just, I don't know, luck or whatever?
Well, I see it as luck, but I know there's a lot of planning that goes into protests. Like the one more left leading ones, like Extinction Rebellion. It's quite easy to go there and talk to people because people kind of want to make a show out of their protest. It's quite easy to get pictures and kind of see things happening. And I don't shoot with like big zoom lenses, as a lot of these press photographers do. They have kind of like kit given to them by newspapers that are like £10,000 altogether. And I shoot with a 24mm, which is super wide, and you can't really get a good picture far away with a 24mm. So I forced myself to be as close as possible. When you see like a different crowd, like I've ended up at like a Tommy Robinson march before, and you kind of have to, I almost call it acting. You have to like act the part. When some guy questions me, he's like, "Oh, why are you here, mate?" And I can look at him, and I can say, "Oh, I'm here for the same reason you are." And he'll say, "Oh, sweet man," and he'll just give me a can of beer and walk away. If I told him I'm a photographer, I know he would have a different reaction. So I'm testing the waters. I'm seeing how far I can go and seeing how far people will trust me by being like completely undiscriminate. I'm like a chameleon.
That's so good. Like I said, I think it shows in your work, to capture the emotions, especially on your close-up images, to catch certain emotions in not just one, but multiple people in your photos is so good. And I think that really shows. But yeah, it's really interesting you saying that you use a 24mm lens, because I just didn't realize that.
Yeah, because you're like, I think when you see your work and it's this wide angle, and I've seen the videos of you, which we'll talk about, but like you're capturing, like Jamie said, all multiple people's faces. And the other work that I see is from people on a longer lens, and you've got that classic long lens shot where you can kind of tell it was taken a bit further back. There's one thing in focus and everything else got some nice, you know, blurry background or whatever, and they're like great photos, I guess, but they don't really tell
Yeah.
you a lot. They focused on that one thing, so you can kind of, you know, I saw somebody posting signs that people were holding, and it's like, well, yeah, that's a message and that's just one person's sign, whereas it doesn't encapsulate kind of everything, the mood of everything that was happening. So it's a really interesting way to shoot it. And you're using the Ricoh, right?
I use the Ricoh a lot, yeah. And it's great because people look at me with that tiny camera and think, oh, he's just a small boy with a camera. And
Yeah.
then the moment I see press photographers with 2 cameras around their neck walk around, the same people that thought I'm just essentially a child, they look at these press photographers and think they're the enemy,
Yeah.
especially more the right leading protest.
Yeah.
Just
So
another great reason to buy a Ricoh, I reckon.
yeah. So you're
It's amazing.
you've got,
It's a great camera.
We've all got one here, haven't we?
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you got to be on the way to becoming like Ricoh ambassador then, a GR ambassador,
Oh, I
surely.
hope so. I hope so.
Yeah, 'cause you'll
Just
start.
going back to that, because when you take, like, if you think of people who take photos of, like, you know, portrait photography and landscape photography, you're looking for, you know, a certain moment or a certain bit of light to be able to capture the best way you can. Even with street photography, yeah, you can walk around all day snapping away, but even when you walk around doing street photography, you are still looking for certain things that will be attractive in that photo or how you want to express it. But when it comes to documentary, you don't really have that luxury because you're trying to capture what's going on at the scene, not so much about getting the photo to look good. You're documenting, right? So is there anything that you have to, you know, is there any times that you've taken photos and you just can't use them, or you wish would have come out better, or is it just a case you're focusing on purely documenting what's going on, and then you've got so many photos you have to just select from them?
I think it's both. Like I kind of, especially when being in like a situation like a protest or rave, I kind of just almost see it as I'm walking in circles and circles and just following. I see something and I follow that and I photograph that and I turn around and photograph that, and I kind of just keep on going and going and going. And I try not to, especially now in protest, I try not to make myself a part of the protest. Especially if it's something I believe in, I make it like I'm here to document. I'm here to show my support, but I'm here to document.
Mm.
And even if it's the kind of extreme of protests, like the one that happened over the weekend, I kind of make it apparent that I'm just there, not even participating, because the moment you kind of vocalize something, people will react to you differently.
Okay.
So I'm just there to like photograph. I'm not part of any movement, and I don't want to be seen like that because I'm just a documentary photographer.
Mm. So you've always got your yellow coat and like you're sometimes wearing the bike helmet, your famous yellow coat. You've been on like BBC News. I've seen you on with that in the
Yeah,
background. But like, so
it's a good thing to wear. Keeps me in the spotlight.
Keeps you on edge, but yeah, it's
but you're making it
Oh, yeah.
clear and
who thought they'd be on the news getting clotheslined by a policeman?
yeah. So do
Yeah.
you feel wearing that yellow jacket? Do you get more respect from the police? Do you get less respect from the
Oh,
police?
no respect at all. I'm police use me as target practice.
What was the protest you were at this Saturday, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was basically a party for the 1 year anniversary of lockdown.
That was Saturday the 20th, wasn't it?
Yep, Saturday 20th. It was anti-lockdown, anti-mask, and anti-vaccine.
All as one, all in one place.
Yeah, they kind of fall under the same umbrella, same roof.
And they were kind of all over London, because I know they were in Hyde Park, but I saw them at Downing Street maybe as well.
There was so many people, but they kind of spread across all of London, and the protest location wasn't given until like the last 10 minutes, and by that time there was too many people spread across London that kind of fell into each other and then got broken up by police, and then just landed back at Hyde Park.
And then so you ended up in Hyde Park as well, kind of late afternoon.
Yeah.
So there's a video. We'll put a link to the video that you shared with me, and the relevant. I think it's about 4 minutes in. So that was some of the photos. So what is it today? What's the date now? 24th of March. Some of the photos you've posted today are from that march. Were really, really powerful shots. Really evocative of, like, I think of the mood on the day, probably. But tell us what happened to you.
Oh, well, me and like a group of 6 photographers, we made our way back to Hyde Park, and we saw just like clouds of smoke grenades going off. And we were like, oh, cool, we're going to miss the action. Let's run to it. We're all photographers. We're running, carrying our cameras. And by the time we got to where the big crowd was, the smoke is cleared. And when the smoke cleared, I kind of saw a line of police marching through it. And then I saw bottles being thrown. And I was like, okay, this is why I brought a helmet. I don't want to get bottled. I don't want to get hit unexpectedly. Put on my trusty Tony Hawk helmet and started photographing. And I think, like I mentioned, everything kind of got really like loud and intense, and you kind of don't know what to think. You can feel your heart beating and your adrenaline pumping, and you see these protesters shout vile things at police, and these police kind of get more and more angry and kind of like slowly start to get really almost like at breaking point, and then more bottles are being thrown. And then I'm edging my way to the edge of the police line to my right, and then a police commander shouted "charge" at the crowd, and I was in the crowd, and they went straight into me, popped me on the head, and I kind of like woke up with these 2 officers like pulling me out.
That was terrible, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You can see it happen in the video, and you kind of get knocked off to the side of the screen, and then you can't really tell where you've gone. And then the next thing you see is you kind of holding your head with a policeman.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are they helping you at that point, or are they just kind of trying to push you out of the way? Or
I think they were helping me because I have like a official press pass. Police shouldn't really journalist.
yeah,
And the fact that I had the pass that meant was protect photographers and journalists doing their job. So I think they had to, and they saw like a yellow coated man on the floor. They're like, oh, let's pick him up from to the side.
Yeah,
it definitely looked like they were helping you get out of the way. But yeah, that video, I watched it earlier, and it was mind blowing. But yeah, again, it goes back to my respect for you being on, front line, and then you can see in the video you there taking photos. I'm just like, that's insane.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how much you can see in the video, but I'm holding my press card in one hand and a camera in the other. So I'm like putting my card to the police officer's face. It's like, don't hit me, please. Yeah. But I'm not sure if the video didn't even pick up what happened after that, which was I was photographing a woman getting arrested, and I was like, I didn't want to stay still after I was knocked down, because I know the moment I kind of rest, the moment everything will hit me, and I wouldn't want to photograph. So I kind of had to push myself, like, I'm going to carry on going, a bit roughed up, start photographing this woman getting arrested, and out of nowhere a crowd forms around this woman, and a man just punches a police officer. I'm like, okay, I'm photographing that now. And then out of nowhere, from behind me comes a riot officer with a riot shield, knocks me over again.
Wow. Okay. Okay. And what happened after you got knocked down?
I was more hurt and angry that the riot officer did that, because the police officers kind of dealt with it, and the officers that knocked me down initially were called TSG police, and these are the ones, like, I call them meatheads because they're all insane, and these are the ones that go into like protests, crowds, like deal with football hooligans, really dispersed crowds, and they know how to like intimidate people. But these riot officers, I haven't actually seen them before in London, and which is alarming, because I don't know how they will react to protest or like a group of people. But getting knocked down from behind with a huge chunk of plastic, and then having them like almost tread over me, then fall over, and then call me an idiot. It's like there's no need for that. There was no need to charge for me and another photographer who was besides me. And you kind of can see their mentality where when they start to panic, they just go straight ahead and attack a crowd.
Wow. So does it make you say you feel angry about it, does it make you kind of, when that happens, clearly like that's not an okay thing to do, what can you do? Can you like, I don't know, maybe I'm being naive, but like take their number and report them? And
well, yeah. Thankfully, like with my press card, I have like a union support.
Okay.
So I normally was like, oh, what officer did that? And the officer was, oh, it's this guy. I'll take his badge number and saying, oh, could I just, what's your name? What's your badge number? And once they give you the badge number, you have the details, where they're based, who's their sergeant. And I tell that to like my union, and they would say they can see if they can do anything. But because I couldn't get the badge number of the officer that knocked me down twice, I couldn't do anything. And I wasn't hurt. I was just I was more annoyed that it happened. Especially now I have like official credentials saying police officers can't attack journalists.
Of course, they've got this kind of, I don't know, what is it, like an oath, they shouldn't hurt press. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. You're there to document what's going on. But if you're a police officer, you sign up for, you know, being held accountable for what you do minute to minute or second to second in that sort of situation.
I think this is why it goes back to the importance of documenting events like this, especially like you've said, you know, you're not there to make it look like a certain way. You're there to document what's going on and how it is. And I think that really does reflect in the imagery. So when you've been to whatever event it is, it doesn't have to be a protest, it doesn't have to be a rave, whatever it might be. Obviously, you're sitting on a lot of photos. Do you have a certain way of selecting the images, or is it just a case of looking through them and looking for ones that you're most drawn to, or is it something else? You know, are you thinking about how it's going to be portrayed?
Only like two things I go through. If I'm sent there to like cover it by like a Vice or Hub magazine, I normally send like a selection of like 10 to like 50 images off to them straight away because they need it for immediate use. But then I always give myself some breathing space, like away from the pictures. So I remember images that I've taken on the day, but oh, that's a really good picture, I'm going to use that one. But I also wait until I forgot about the images I took and just spend a few days just not looking at it, not really worrying or caring about it. And then when I'm finally ready, I go for it and saying, oh, that's a good picture. That's a good picture. I haven't realized I took that picture. And it kind of is refreshing because I don't remember, I don't force myself to be, as soon as I take it, I edit and send it up or upload it up to Instagram. I give myself time to like really let the images mature almost.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
it's strange you say that, because I think that's what I do with my photography, and I'm not doing anything nearly as powerful as what you're doing. But I find that's why I like shooting film, because I have to wait. You know, like I have to wait for those images to come back. But even with digital, and even with digital, I try not to, because let's say I go out and take 30 photos, you know, digital photos. I guarantee that I'll come back and I'll like almost 30 of them. But if I sit on them for 24 hours, 29 of them I'm going to hate the next day. Like, it's just how it works, isn't
it?
I think with a lot of the pictures that you posted from the weekend, they've got an amazing, this kind of like kinetic energy. It reminded me of, do you know William Klein? He's like an old...
Yes.
Right. So I think he's got a website or something. I'll put a link there in the description for anybody who's not heard of him before. But he's an amazing photographer, and he has this brilliant quote that is, I can't remember what it is, but it's something along the lines of, I would prefer something to be like not technically a great photo, but an interesting image, than a perfect photo. And you know, and not be very interesting to look at. And his work is like that. He's got all these blurry images, and they're not technically in focus, or he shot on a really wide lens and he was really close up. and he didn't care if an image was a little bit too blurry or whatever, he would still use it. And I think that there was a couple of photos in the ones that you posted earlier today that had that similar kind of thing. Like you could see, you know, it was like slightly blurry or whatever it might be, but there was so much like energy and, I don't know, passion or rage or whatever it was encapsulated in that image. It was great, really powerful.
It's like they've got so much depth that you kind of forget about the photography for a second. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then so you're looking at it for as long as you look at it. I was looking for them for ages earlier. I was trying to, you know, I can picture myself being there. And then I take a step back and I'm like, actually, that's a really good photo as well. Do you know what I mean? So like, yeah, but I was just wondering if they're all like that, or if they're, you know, if there is a selection process with it.
Well, it was that kind of moment was a bit, it happened so quickly, and I was like, I'm just gonna just take pictures and kind of not try to think about it. And you could see like the moment where an officer hits me, and like there's a picture there. I think I've uploaded it. But it's just a completely blurry picture, but you can make out an officer's essentially right in front of me, and I'm like, kind of like almost going down. And now there's context to the picture. It kind of makes more sense about what was happening, how it happened, and kind of means more, especially to me, like how I didn't stop shooting until I was face down in the grass.
Yeah, I think that's that picture. You can see like the forearm of the of somebody in front of you, and if you're considering you're shooting that on that Ricoh
24,
with that massive wide lens, they've got to be so close to you to get that, you know, that arm that close in the picture. It's amazing. And it kind of it's a logical step forward again from like the rave stuff and the work that's in your Rave to the Grave book. You can tell that there's like a step on from what you're doing. It's obviously still your work, but it's kind of this kind of logical progression. So what's next? Like, what's your plans to do next? Carry on protests, or you've got other plans?
I think you're right. Like, there's definitely something that is very similar to like protests and raves, and it makes sense to me. Like, there's something about the crowds and also the mob mentality in both, less of the raves, but definitely more like energy that is like really similar, I've realized, and how crowds move and people move, and it's like learning to move with them. It is something that I'm kind of trying to piece together. Maybe it's definitely long term, but I'm trying to do some like quite local projects, almost like I say lockdown project, but a bit more based around me, just purely because of the lockdown and just walking, which is something quite different, very almost traditional documentary photography, which is very different to me. But then use this protest work as like a step ladder to kind of like meet interesting people and like kind of get into subcultures and get into situations where police are trying to hopefully not crack my head open. I remember when I first started doing protests, like early BLM stuff was around May, June last year, and I kind of was panicking because I didn't know what to do. And then by like September, there was almost like a pro far right protest, and I was just at the front, and these officers were like getting knocked down, getting bottled, and I was still there just taking pictures. And now I kind of have taken all of that in, even from the weekend, and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of now I'm finding a rhythm, finding a beat, and I'm kind of like really finding my stride in protest.
I think it shows as well. It definitely shows in your work. And, you know, like you said, someone next to you could be talking to you saying, oh, why are you here? You know, I'm here for the same reasons you. And you're like, this isn't my first rodeo, pal. I've been to a few of these.
Yeah.
We mentioned a bit a minute ago about like shooting on film and shooting on digital. So like, what are you shooting at the moment? What are your kind of cameras of choice, and between digital and film?
I love the Ricoh. Ricoh, I think, is a camera that you can carry anywhere, and like in a protest, in a rave, it's so inconspicuous. Like no one will question you unless they're a photographer,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, that's a weird looking travel camera. How much was that?" And you're like, "Oh, £10." I'm like, "Oh, cool. See ya." No one will really know, and it works so well, and you could do so much with it. And the more you use it, you kind of really teach yourself fundamentals of like photography.
Yeah.
But I do love film. I've been shooting a lot of Polaroid recently, actually, which
Okay.
is
cool.
great. It's
Okay.
very expensive, but I've been taking a few portraits in Polaroid, which I love because it's super nostalgic. Again,
I suppose you've got to find that balance, because you clearly love the documentary style, but then you clearly still have a passion for photography. It's
yeah,
not just what you're there, working. So the fact that you will shoot film sometimes just shows how dedicated you are to the craft of not just what you're there to do, but for your passion as well. And that will only ever show in your work, I think.
last year there was the like 10-day stretch of Extinction Rebellion protests in London, and for that whole time I carried a Mamiya RB in my bag, which is stupidly heavy. It was like 10 kilos, and I was carrying that non-stop, and I think I just took 4 pictures over 10 days. And I was like, I'm happy with those pictures, but I'm like, it was the joy of just like seeing, oh, that could be a picture, framing it up, and then like, oh, I'm not taking a picture of that and putting it back. It was it was really fulfilling.
I can appreciate. I've literally just bought that camera, and
Oh,
there is
it's
no way
so good.
I'm going on anything like that holding that. I'm so scared
So
of
good.
dropping it. Yeah,
No,
I'm still
they're
at the
tank.
stage where I'll only shoot it on a tripod at the moment.
No, I only shoot it handheld. To be fair, they're really strong. It's all metal, so you wouldn't drop it on my foot. That's what I'm saying. It would
Yeah.
really bad.
So would you ever shoot a protest on film, or is it not
Yeah,
really worth it?
I will do. I have done as well, but
Okay.
I feel I'm very impatient. Like I give myself time to let images breathe. But if I was to like develop it, I would be really furious about how I shot it, even more so than I was, because I could turn this color image black and white, or I can use this crop. But if it was film, I'm like, I need to be precise,
Yeah.
and yeah, which scares me more, especially in a protest.
Yeah. You got so much more chance of missing something, and it's kind of, I think the reason for using film nowadays is because you enjoy, like the process of taking a photo and thinking about it on film. So it's kind of not exactly the right medium, is it, if you're if you're at a protest. So okay, so quick fire. First question, who do you think is the hardest working photographer today?
Oh, this is the tough one, because I think I don't want to say myself, because that sounds too pompous. So I'm gonna say photographers that I really shoot with. I think Christian Cross,
Yeah.
Craig Bernard, they're super hardworking. I'll send over his account. Really interesting photographer. He basically goes around protests and like events carrying like a strobe flash.
Right.
And
Okay,
like
cool.
he's been photographing like almost every single protest in London for like the past like 3-4 years,
Yeah.
and he's just always there, which is like super crazy. And he just turns up, shoots with
Wow.
like this huge flash on like a tripod, on a monopod, sorry, taking like really tight portraits of people.
Okay.
So it's really different work, but amazing.
Is he kind of like Bruce Gilden but less offensive?
Yeah. That's a good way to say it. Yeah, the photographers I normally shoot of like protests with, like we normally meet in a group and just keep eyes on each other, and we all do our own thing. Kind of don't get in each other's way. But like, I'll have to send you all of their names. It's like too much. There's like on Instagram, the East London photographer. He just does really unique portraits, unique pictures. I'm just seeing if I can get people up now before I forget them and they really try to fight me. Oh my goodness. There's a photographer called Joe Daniel who's really good. He does like again portraits.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
You can
There's
always
loads
send
that
me,
I'm really inspired by. Yeah, I'm
send me a
really
list.
inspired by photographers around me who are just, we all kind of like work together and gel together. So it's just too many of them to mention.
If you photograph with people, you have that certain bond, yeah, and you want to all look after each other. But it's cool that you've selected people that you kind of know or close to.
Yeah, I see it almost as like when we're out together as a group, but also as individuals. So we always push each other, and we're like, oh, you can get that picture. I know you like harsh shadows and portraits, and always, oh, we can get this picture instead, and we kind of help each other as well. So yeah, we're all fairly cool and hardworking.
That's cool. But
Yeah.
you're, from what I get from that, is if you could say yourself, you'd say yourself, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Good. So next question, quick fire question: who's your favorite all-time photographer? And that can be living or dead.
Oh, Vivian Maier.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I suppose we've all seen the documentary and everything. Like, amazing.
Yeah, really cool.
I'll put a link to that Finding Vivian Maier documentary just for anyone who's not seen it. It's got to be on, like, whatever. So totally moving away from photography. So your top 3 all-time, I think this is a hard question, but top 3 all-time albums.
Brutalism, Idols.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. Return to Jungle by Chase and Status,
Nice.
drum and bass, and We Must Become Pitiless Censors of Ourselves by John Mouse.
Isn't he a bit problematic nowadays?
Yes and no. I don't think he's super insane, but he's a lecturer in politics.
Okay.
And he's got like a doctorate in it, so I don't think he's super pro-Trump. Let's just say that.
Okay.
No,
yeah.
But his music's great.
Yeah, I've never really. I know about him from some like weird. I can't remember this Instagram account I follow called like Weird Music something or other, and they always talk about him, but I've never really listened. And then the other one, top 3 movies.
Oh, Drive.
Okay, good soundtrack. That
great soundtrack. Parasite and The Raid.
Oh, that's a great choice. That's definitely in my top, like, I'm gonna say 7. It's always on my list, which is a real thing to have. Yeah, I have on my phone. I've got like top 10 and then top 7, and sometimes I move things around. But also they're like categorized and have it for all albums, bands, songs, films, directors, books. The Raid is awesome. Yeah, such an amazing film. Have you watched Parasite in black and white? Because there's a black and white version of it.
What? No way.
Yeah, it's on Amazon again, I think. It's like he recolored it into black and white, editing, each scene as he saw fit to as he said, accentuate the shades of grey within the story, which I think is quite a thing to say, but like Bong Joon-ho, you've got to trust him. But yeah, it's cool. It's an interesting experience to watch and always a great film to rewatch. So yeah, check it out.
So I was just to say, is there anything you want to leave, like a leaving message? I'm sure we'll meet up again soon enough and we'll catch up. But yeah, is there anything you want to say at the moment? Anything you're currently working on? Anything you want to just get out there? Or anything you want to say to people that are getting into photography or already following you, whatever it might be?
Student photography or just like taking pictures in general. Never stop shooting and always have a camera with you. Wherever you go, just always carry something. If it's your phone, if it's a Mamiya RB, it's that, but have something on you.